This is a Dreamcast disc and is for use only on a Dreamcast unit. Playing this disc on a hi-fi or other audio equipment can cause serious damage to its speakers.
Dreamcast, up to 6 billion players.
Welcome back to the stage of history.
Why don't we play together?
Hey, it's time to make some crazy money. Are you ready? Here we go!
Please stop this disc now.
Hello, welcome to DreamPod, a Dreamcast podcast with up to 6 billion listeners, and you are one of them. This is episode 102, and it's a newscast. There's lots going on in the Dreamcast community at present, and we thought it was worth doing another one of these roundup episodes for your listening pleasure. There are lots of new indie games coming, several Kickstarters to chat about, and some interesting homebrew projects underway. And if that's your bag, you're in the right place. Obviously, if you're listening to this in the distant future, then everything we're about to discuss will be old news. But sadly, we can't stop the march of time. Well, I can't anyway. I don't know if the other two can. First, though, introductions. My name is Tom, and this time I'm joined by Lewis. Hello, Lewis.
Hey, Tom. I'm happy to be here.
Brilliant. I think the best way you described yourself on a recent podcast was that you were dandy.
Yeah.
Is there any advance on dandy?
I'm not going to make the Beano joke again.
No.
What was the other one that was like the Beano? I don't know. There was another, the Beezer.
Yeah, was there one called Topper or something as well?
Yeah, loads of them. Yeah. Anyway, I am dandy. You know.
Brilliant. Nice. You heard his voice there. His name is Mike. Hello, Mike.
Hello, Tom. Good to be here.
And how are you today? How would you describe your current situation?
Ambivalent.
Ambivalent. Nice.
Yeah, that's the word I'm looking for. Ambivalent. That's my current stance.
I appreciate the lack of context. Like what no one will ever know why Mike is ambivalent. No. You just have to guess.
A man of mystery.
Yes.
Well, that's how we like it. Keep people guessing. Right. That's the intro's done. Let's just jump straight into the news, shall we? There's quite a bit of it to get through on this podcast. First things first, then. Indie releases. There's tons of them coming out, already out, things that have been announced. Mike, you are the man in the seat with a lot of these games. Obviously, you are compiling still your weighty tome that is the A to Z of Dreamcast games.
Yep.
And every time one of these new games comes out, I suppose you have to stop and kind of rewrite a page, don't you?
Yes.
So with that in mind, and through gritted teeth, I'm sure, do you want to take us on a bit of a whirlwind trip, a whistle-stop tour of all of these new games that have come out and just give us a bit of an idea about what they are, essentially?
Yeah, sure. So, unfortunately, listeners to this podcast will now have to put up with me talking for a while. So, I apologise now for that one person who doesn't like my voice and always comments.
Sorry about that. That's me.
Apart from Tom. Amazingly enough, we won a Dreamcast podcast in the year 2022, and yet I've got to talk about 9 Dreamcast games that have been released in the last 2 months.
Wow.
It's just a little bit strange, I think we can all agree. So 9 games have already come out. So these are games that are already in people's hands. These are games that don't include re-releases as well. We've had a couple of re-releases as well in the last couple of months. There's been an absolute ton of games. So I'm going to run through the games that may be new to people. I'm sure some listeners will have had some of these already, but they are all new games. So start off with Alice Sisters. So Alice Sisters is the sequel to Alice's Mom's Rescue, which was a game came out 4 years ago, I think it was now, 4 or 5 years ago. That was developed by Orion, the French indie developer who brought out quite a few really cool and quirky little games a few years ago.
Yeah.
It's a sequel to that. It's similar, so it's a sort of a platformer. It's very cute, very colourful, but this time, as the name may suggest, it's got a co-op mode as well. So it's just a really quirky, fun little game, really. It's nothing which is going to push the hardware. None of the games I'm talking about today, possibly with the exception of 1 or 2, really do anything in terms of pushing the hardware. But it is fun, it is quirky, and if you like the first one, it's a game where it goes back to its roots, really, and it's a great little game. It's from Josh Brod, released as one of their 5th wave, 6th wave, I can't remember how many waves they've had now of releases. Last year and a half ago, I think they announced it, and it came out this year, so it's one of the 6 from them that have come out. Basically, it's a platform game, has a sort of a very small inspiration from Alice in Wonderland, which
Yeah.
is required reading in my house, and it basically has, you can get smaller, get bigger, but it's a really interesting and innovative little game. It's a game you can get cheaper on other platforms, which is another recurring trend in this conversation I'm going to have today. But it is just, it's a cute little game, and it's it is full value, it's full price, so it is. I think it's listed £35 at the current time, and I know that does put some people off in terms of these games, so it's always best to be upfront with it. So after Alice Sisters, next game on my list is a game called Supercharged Robot Volcazer. It's a bit of a bizarre name. This is a game from Astroport. It's another game through Josh Prod. This is a game which came out on PC quite a long time ago. I want to say 10 years. I might be wrong in that, but it came out a fair whack ago. It's a horizontal shooter, and it is pretty much, that just describes the game, really. If you know what horizontal shooters are, and you're familiar with Astroport. So Astroport are the guys who brought out a couple of games before. They brought out Armed 7.
Oh, yeah.
They've also brought out a few other games, including on this list here. But they're a developer which released a lot of games on Steam, a lot of games on PC, and it looks like Josh Prod have got some kind of licensing deal, some kind of deal with them, and are releasing quite a few of their games on other platforms. It's pretty good. It's a decent game. Comes across quite a lot like a fan game. One of those kind of fan shooters that are quite prevalent in Japan, where you sort of have an engine of a shooter and you sort of replace all the sprites with different ones.
Oh, yeah.
Which is a bit weird, but it's good fun. I mean, it's if you like Gundam, if you like sort of giant mechs in games, then it ticks all the right notes, really. It's nothing particularly special, but it's all right. Carrying on that trend of games from Josh Prod, there's another one, 6 in total. The third one is a game, I'm going to get the pronunciation all wrong on this one, but Cetasius Next, or Cetasius Next. This is another horizontal shooter, very similar to classic horizontal shooters. If you know what the Konami games from the past, it's very similar to those. It's very similar to the games which you're going to be familiar with. It's got the original Cetasius, and also Cetasius Next, which is sort of a revamped version of it. They did the same with Armed 7 a couple of years ago, which is quite cool. It's a cool inclusion. It's the same game, so it makes no difference in terms of actual longevity, but it's quite a cool inclusion. Again, it's quite generic. I'm a big shooter fan, but I do like my shooters to be a little bit more dynamic, if it's not the original ones, a bit more interesting, and it's a little bit generic. I'm sure we've all played those kind of relatively cheap games on the PC.
I'm thinking instantly of, do you remember Battle Crust from a few years ago? Very kind of generic.
Yeah, very similar.
Yeah.
I mean, it's nothing particularly outstanding. It does some cool things. It's available on Switch as well. I haven't played the Switch version, but it sort of adds to that list of shooters that are on Dreamcast and Switch. We seem to have quite a large crossover between the two.
Yeah.
But it's all right. Again, it's a decent game. I suppose we're all maybe a little bit tapped out still in the shooters in the indie market for Dreamcast, although we haven't had a huge amount in the last few years compared to what we had for the first 10 years of indie games.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to class any game compared to the greatness of something like Stormwind.
Oh, yeah, classic.
Or the NG Dev Team games. They are, I think, the high peak. These are obviously not quite that level, but it's decent fun. And they've all these games have got really good reviews on Steam, so they have got some good feedback from people. Carrying straight on with that as well, is another shooter. This is a vertical shooter, another Astroport port, which is Wolflame. Now, we talked about Wolflame several months ago, possibly a couple of years ago now. I think we had access to an early build of it, and at the time it was quite poorly running. It didn't really have it slowed down a lot. There was a lot of issues.
Yeah, it rings a bell.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
In actual fact, this one's pretty decent. It runs pretty well. There's no real slowdown. It's a vertical shooter, so again, if your Battle Crust is a great comparison to make, it's that sort of mid-90s shooter. If you're fans of Raiden, that kind of game, this is the kind of game which is like. It doesn't do anything particularly amazing. It can't hope to hold up against the classics of Dreamcast shooters, obviously, but it's a cool little indie game, and it's a decent one. The other two games from Josh Prod are a bit different, and the first one's Tough Guy. So Tough Guy is a one-on-one fighter. It's a Taiwanese one-on-one fighter, and it's a sequel to a game called Sango Fighter. Basically, these were games which were released on the Super Akan, the Taiwanese console. Mm-hmm. And this is basically in the same sort of vein of that, same sort of series. It's a one-on-one fighter. It has the exact same problems that Breakers had a few years ago.
Yeah.
In that it's not really running that smoothly. It's a little bit jerky. It's an obvious Street Fighter 2 inspired title. It does have some weird features. It has you can redo your health. You can sort of regen your health in the middle of a fight. Doesn't really work particularly well, to be honest with you. But again, it's a one-on-one fighter. If you like that kind of genre of game, you're going to like this kind of game probably for a couple of bouts, but it's nothing particularly special.
I think the fact that it's a derivative of a Super ACAN game is the main selling point for me, just because hardly anybody outside of Taiwan will have ever actually seen or played on a Super ACAN.
There's a really good 40-minute video by someone on YouTube called Low Score Boy, who basically goes through like the whole history of the Super ACAN and like shows you some of the games. So yeah, I recommend everyone checks that out for a bit of sort of video game esoterica, I suppose.
I'll check that out. Just mentioning Breakers, I thought Breakers was quite good. How does this compare to Breakers? Paulie?
I liked Breakers as well, I've got to say. I mean, I know the real big fighter fans on the podcast at the time were quite scathing of it because of the fact it was dropping frames. It wasn't running as well. It was obviously running through an emulator. This is the same sort of thing. It does have some issues. There is obvious lack of fluidity, which I suppose is going to be compared to fighters on Dreamcast. I know it's maybe a bit unfair to compare it to sort of, Capcom greats, but if you've got a console which plays Capcom versus SNK 2, there's going to be a comparison there, and this obviously can't live up to that. But at the same time, it's another Josh Prod game which has, really high level production values in its packaging. I think we're blessed at the current time with some real quality products being produced from the publishers. But the game itself is, it's not the greatest, but it's definitely an interesting footnote in the history of fighting games, I think.
But it is nice. It is nice to see these games coming out, as you say, Mike. It's nice to have the variety in the releases. They're not all shooters, so yeah, it's cool.
Exactly, yeah. I've still got some waffle on, I'm afraid, listeners. Feel free to sort of tune out for this next 10 minutes. However, we have got some good games coming up. So the last of the Josh Prod games is a game called Rocketron, and this is one which I have no hesitation in recommending. This is a superb game. This is a Metroidvania mixed with sort of Mega Turrican style game. And if you're familiar with both those kind of concepts, then you have a picture in your mind, no doubt. And the picture you have in your mind is exactly what this game is like. This is I say Metroidvania is perhaps a little bit complementary to the game because it's still relatively linear in what it can do. But it's a 2D platformer come run and gun game. There's loads of massive robot enemies. The graphics are really, really crisp. There's some really cool touches. If you remember some of the touches in Gunlord a few years ago, we had sort of like the rain effects in the background and there was like nice cool little pixel art. This game has that in abundance. It has massive bosses. I wrote the preview of this game last year, and I mentioned that it was really, really appealing to me. It was a game which looked fantastic, but my biggest concern was, would it run properly? Would it have some real issues with running? It does not. There's a couple of moments of slowdown, but it really runs really well. It's a really well implemented save system. There's a sort of a very basic story running through it where you sort of see comments from downed fellow soldiers. It's a really, really good game. I really enjoyed it. It's, for me, very close to being the kind of game which can compare to Xenocrisis, Intrepid Izzy. It's perhaps not quite at level. It still has that sort of slight feeling of, I can't remember what the Japanese term is. Lois might be able to help me. What's the Japanese term for a fan-made game? Is it Kusaga or something? Or
Kosoge means shit game. But I think you're looking...
maybe not that then.
No, Daljinshi,
That's
sort of like
one.
fan game, yeah.
That's the one. It has a little bit of a feeling like that, but it's really, really good, and it really surprised me. It was the first game I played of the 6, and it gave me a really, really high hope for what was to come. I think it also appears on the Astroport Collector. They're bringing out an Astroport collection next year, which includes 2 of these games. But really good games, so that's really good. And then to round it off, we have 3 other releases who aren't from Josh Prod. We have, and these are actually really interesting ones. So first of all, we have Ghoul Grind, Night of the Necromancer. I put a review of this game up on the Dreamcast Junkyard a couple of weeks ago.
You did? I enjoyed it. Good review.
Yeah, really good game. So it's one of these, we seem to have a real glut of NES Maker games, so games that are made for the NES, running through NES Maker program and ported to the Dreamcast. Some of them are really interesting, and they're not going to push system at all. I know that people are going to complain that why am I paying £30 for a NES game on the Dreamcast? But good games are good games, and Gore Grind has everything that I love in a game. It's got a real good Halloween influence. It's just cute. It's got some really fun bits into it. It's in absolutely no way pushing anything the Dreamcast can do, and it's really simple, but it's a really fun game. It was a Kickstarter project a couple of years ago. It got funded. They now sell their game, Dreamcast version, online on their web store. But really, really good game. Loads of Halloween influence. If you're a big Halloween fan, horror fan, then this is the kind of game for you.
I appreciated the attention to detail. Like, obviously, they could have just put it on the Dreamcast, but you mentioned it in your review, Mike. Did you say it was in the training bit where instead of it having an NES controller in the background, they changed it to a Dreamcast controller, like in the background as you walk past? Do you know the bit I mean?
I do, yeah. So I just realised people are going to complain about me saying NES and not NES as well. So I apologise for nothing. So in the tutorial, the little bit sort of first level on the NES version, there is a NES controller in the background. So NES again now, look, I'm in a habit now. NES controller in the background, showing you what buttons to press. They changed it to Dreamcast one. That's really cool. Like I said, it's a very small attention to detail, very small addition, but it's really nice to have that. It shows that they actually didn't just port it over quickly and cheaply.
Can we just have a quick straw poll actually on that topic, Mike? You say NES, and other people say SNES. How do you pronounce the sequel console? What do you call that?
SNES.
Yeah, I call it that as well.
Yeah, I call it SNES.
I call that NES because of, the abundance of American YouTubers, the NES, just out of habit. And then I've always called the SNES, the SNES,
Yeah, same. Never Super NES or SNES. That sounds wrong.
I knew a guy on the Retro Gamer Forum many years ago who decided that he was only ever going to call the console the American Famicom to really piss people off. And it worked surprisingly well. So yeah, there you go. Let's call it the American Famicom. That's my new decision. That's what we're going to call it.
I had a friend at school, right, who refused to call the N64 the N64. He would always call it the Ultra. And I'm like, mate, it's not the Ultra 64, it's the N64. Call it. Oh no, mate, I've got an Ultra.
Can we rename the podcast the Katana Podcast just to really cut the hardcore fans from the non-hardcore fans?
I do have one of those things that's, I don't know, it's probably a bit gatekeepery, but something I really hate is when people call the PS1 the PSX, because the PSX was that like DVD PS2 thing. I don't know what it is. But like for some, I don't know why it's called PS. People call it PSX online all the time, and I don't get that. I'm not sure.
It was the original abbreviation, but I think PS1's wrong as well, isn't it? Because PS1 is technically just the small modified.
Small one, yeah.
So
it should.
Yeah, but that's PS1 with the word spelled ONE into it. Oh, we're going down a rabbit hole here, aren't we?
We are.
So in conclusion, we just call it the PS, and everyone can just get confused.
Yeah, basically every single console we're going to call not the Dreamcast from now on. Just make it I'm nearly at the end of my little roundup. We've got two more games to focus on. One of them is a game which I haven't played a massive amount of. It's a game called Witching Hour. Now, Witching Hour is a game which I believe was developed 5-6 years ago now. It's a Wolfenstein 3D engine style game, and this is a horror game. It is a game where you are basically, your van runs out of fuel in the woods, and you've got to try and find, I think it's the tyres and a map to get yourself out of that. The game doesn't run brilliantly. It's running on Wolfenstein 3D engine, so it's not going to be high tech. And it's a bit weird. There's a couple of things. I'm not going to spoil anything about it. There's a couple of things which sort of happen, which you sort of go, "Oh, okay, bit weird." And there's not much to the game. However, it has to be given to. So the guy who produced this, Sega Sky Pro Studio, I think they call themselves. But the attention in the actual package that they give out is amazing. It's got a map with it. It's got a little film cell facsimile, a Japanese spine card. It's got a poster. Credit where credit's due. I mean, they've certainly done quite a lot with the packaging, and it looks really cool. And I was really impressed by it.
I must say, Mike, I was a little surprised to hear about this one coming up because I remember seeing this years ago. I'm pretty sure PC Wizard did a playthrough of it on his channel like years ago when it was just a free like ROM you could download, and it was just just get it and get it
Yeah.
for free and put it on your SD card or whatever. So to hear that it's now come out as a physical release is interesting, but also a little surprising. So
Yeah, it's not going to set the world on fire in terms of a fantastic game. It's a bit limited by its concept, I suppose. But it's just, there's a lot of very cool things in there. If you're a horror fan, again, there's lots of cool things in there. There's a really atmospheric sort of really atmospheric soundtrack to it. I say soundtrack, it's not really music as such, it's sort of this atmospheric ambient sound, but that was really impressive. And just the package itself was really impressive. It's sold quite cheaply as well. I think it's £20-ish. This is very much one for those who really want to support people in the community rather than someone who's looking for the next great game on Dreamcast. But yeah, it's a decent one.
I think a horror game is something that we've been looking for in the indie scene.
Yeah.
Like I think Andrew mentioned he'd love to see kind of an attempt at one of the old survival horror games, but an indie game. So this isn't quite it, but it's a start, I guess.
what was that? What was that one that was going to be
Hypertension.
That's it. I knew you'd know. Yeah, the Hypertension. That kind of died a death, didn't it? Just disappeared. Yeah.
Disappointing as well, because that was definitely one of my most looked forward to games.
Yeah, look good that.
Yeah, as Lewis said, I think horror games, they're sort of ageless, aren't they? They're sort of timeless. Everyone likes a good horror game. And horror games can transcend the limitations of the console, because obviously, you don't have to be something which is pushing the console. You can have things sort of in any sort of style to be horror styled. So, yeah, it's decent. Pick it up if you're a big fan of that sort of game. And the very final game I want to mention is a game which is actually my favourite of the lot. And it's Tapeworm Disco Puzzle, which is another sequel. It's a sequel to Flea, which was an indie game came out a couple of years ago. It's recently been re-released by Wave Game Studios on a press disc. Again, it's a NES game, but that was a really cute sort of bouncing platformer. Tapeworm Disco Puzzle is very different. It's a grid-based puzzle title, and you have to collect all of the musical notes to keep your nightclub going, because you are a Tapeworm nightclub owner, of course. And you have to also collect some blood, like you did in the first game, by coordinating yourself around to allow the fleas to bounce off you. You're limited by the size of your tapeworm, so you have to get tapes to extend your length of your tapeworm. No jokes for that, please. And obviously, as you're then moving around, you're limited by a number of spaces. Obviously, if you've got a note which is 20 spaces away and your tapeworm's only 16 length, you've got to get the actual tape to get that to extend yourself, and such and such. It adds loads of concepts as the game goes on. It adds wormholes. It adds enemies, loads of other little bits. It also has boss battles, which are based around a sort of snake concept, where you're basically ever moving tapeworm. You've got to try and coordinate yourself and move yourself in the right time. It's just a really fun game. It's got one of the best chiptune soundtracks I've heard. Again, by, I think, is it Tui? T-U-I? Same guy did the soundtrack for Flea. Really jumpy, really sort of fun soundtrack. It's got some really cute cutscenes in it.
Is the soundtrack as good as Hermes?
Yeah, better.
Is it? Oh wow! High praise.
Yeah, I love the Hermes soundtrack, as you know. It's up there with that. It's really good. Really fun. It's in my head for a long time, and just a really fun game. Just something really different. Again, it's an NES game. People are going to say, Mike, why are you talking about an NES game? Why is it so important that we have NES games on Dreamcast? Those people are, of course, horrendous bores, and it's just a fun game. And Low Tech Games, the guys who Alistair Lowe, the guys behind these games, he sells them on Etsy, so he has this on Etsy now as well. Really good, and I just love the fact they've had this sort of mini universe they've created with these games, and it's just really fun. There's cutscenes in this game and everything as well. It's just really cool, and for me, one of the better indie games we've had in the last couple of years. So yeah, really good game.
Wow, that's quite the roundup, Mike. Thank you for that. It's not over yet though, because there's even more new games. Is that what we're saying? Yeah, there's more stuff coming. The first of which is coming from a publisher that you just mentioned there fleetingly, Mike. That's Wave Game Studios. They've actually released it already. It's Yeah Beebis 2, which is available now from the Wave Game Studios shop. and it's priced at $19.99. I think the history behind this game, or the pseudo history, is what kind of interests me more than the actual game itself, to be honest.
Yeah.
And for those people who maybe don't know, Yeah Yeah Beavis 1 is almost like it's an urban legend in gaming, where back in the sort of the 80s, when you used to get physical print magazines, you get these lists of games that were coming soon, and Yeah Yeah Beavis 1 was a game that was advertised by this one particular company as coming soon, and it never actually materialised, and people kind of think it was a copyright trap for other companies, like copying lists of games and then saying, oh, we're bringing these games out as well. Anyway, there's tons of videos on YouTube. I highly recommend a search for Yeah Yeah Beavis on YouTube, because it's fascinating. But this game, it comes from John Riggs, who is a very well-known YouTuber and retro gamer, and it's basically a play on that whole mythos, I think. I think it's really well done. The game itself is a sort of a single-screen puzzle game where you have to kind of kill everything on the screen before the timer runs out. It's got great music. It's got really nice packaging again, and is really competitively priced. The first run of this was actually being sold by John Riggs himself, wasn't it, through his own store, and it sold out in like 10 minutes or something. But I think he was selling it for like $50, whereas it's now being sold through Wave Game Studios, and it's 20 quid. So get it, essentially.
It was really fun watching the release, because I think what happened is that I don't think John Riggs realised how many people would want that Dreamcast version, and especially people in Europe. That was it. Everyone was trying to buy it, and they were like, oh, it seems really cheap. The postage doesn't seem that bad at all coming from America.
That's right.
And then he obviously was like, actually, we hadn't figured that out yet.
Didn't that happen to you, Mike? Didn't
It did, yeah.
yours got cancelled, didn't it, because of the postage? Yeah.
Cool enough, a lot of the community said, hey, check out Wave, and so it was cool seeing them release that as their next game after Intrepid Izzy.
Yeah, I think interesting as well is that the game, I don't know too much about who developed the game and actually how it was made, but Megacat Studios were involved.
Yeah.
Megacat Studios have a long line of indie games. And so there's a part of me which thinks, does this now mean that perhaps in the future Wave Game Studios may actually release some of their titles, which could be an interesting move in the Dreamcast indie scene?
Yeah, didn't they put out a collection on that handheld?
Evercade, yeah, it's a fantastic collection.
Yeah, so that could be something coming down the pipe at some point, maybe, potentially. Who knows?
There is a good video that John actually put out where he explains kind of like how the game was made. I think he said that he so Megacat did like most of it, but I think he kind of like changed some bits around and came up, they sort of came up with the concept together and stuff.
What do you think of that, Mike? Have you played it at all?
Yeah, I've been playing it just before the podcast. I've been playing it a while, last couple of days. Yeah, it's fantastic. Really cool the fact that they've built on the mythos of the game. So I think they've actually used the same characters as the game that some people think it's an English translation of.
Yeah.
I don't know the title in Japanese of that game, but they use the same sort of characters, which is really, really cool. I thought it was a nice little touch. The music's fantastic as well. I mean, they've got loads of classical songs done in chiptune style, which I love. Yeah, really good game.
Have you played it, Lewis?
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I love sort of like single screen games like that. I love as well that it's a sequel.
Yeah.
They could have just called it Yeah Beavis, but it's like, this is a sequel to a game that never existed. I just love everything about it.
Excellent. Yeah, and keeping on the theme of Wave, I promise we're not actually sponsored by Wave, but Wave Studios, if you are listening to this and you want to sponsor us, then you feel free to get in touch. That said, we did do an interview with the guys from Wave a couple of weeks back, and they are very, very sound people. So that's all good. But there's a new version of Xenocider via Wave. I don't know what the full details are. Apparently it's going to have some extra content potentially and for a game like Xenocider that's already bursting with content, to have even more content added to it is just I'm very excited to see what is included, because the guys from Retro Summers did an absolute blinder with that game. Adding all of the bonus stages and different types of gameplay and just all of the little surprises, even all the little kind of like the achievements that they put into the game, things that I've never seen in a Dreamcast game before. It was just so well done, and to know that there's even more not action-packed, but content-packed version of Xenocider potentially coming is very interesting. So keep your eyes peeled.
There's actually 2 other special editions that are actually out now. They've released a special edition of Rush Rush Rally Reloaded, which I believe comes with the soundtrack. And then the other one was Flea, which is a special edition. Like me and Mike both have the original that was on Etsy. This one has the soundtrack, so it's that really good chiptune music. So it's cool that you have it on CD. So yeah.
God, so many new games. You'd think we were still kind of in the height of Dreamcast like fever, where it's all actually a live console. It is essentially still alive,
And I think what's amazing is that Wave Game Studios have got a game coming out every month. I've seen a preview of their release schedule, and there's some pretty big surprises coming for people this year.
Would you call them bangers, Mike? Would you describe them as bangers?
I wouldn't ever call anything a banger because I'm not so churlish in my words. But I would say they are very interesting. I don't know. Yeah, they're bangers. Let's go for it. They're bangers. Yeah, they're bangers, mate. Yeah.
Whoa! Stop the press. I'm recording this after the episode was actually recorded, so apologies for the interruption, but I have important news to bring you, and that is that Postal is coming to the Dreamcast, officially sanctioned by the original developers Running with Scissors. It's developed by a guy called Dan Redfield and will be published by our friends at Wave Game Studios. We did cover this on the blog back in December 2021 because Dan released it as a free download, a beta version, and I played it, and it was fantastic and had everything you would expect a Dreamcast port to have. So it had full Dreamcast controller support. The new version will be physically released in a proper Dreamcast jewel case, PAL or NTSC, 60 frames a second, and all looks good. Yeah, so check out the blog because there is some information on there about Postal for the Dreamcast. Now back to your regular scheduled programming. One game that I wasn't going to mention, but I feel I must, is one that I was actually really excited for, but then I discovered what it actually is. And I don't want to take anything away from the people doing it, because obviously anything that's coming to Dreamcast is obviously gratefully received. But there was some murmurs a couple of weeks back about potentially a new indie football game coming to the Dreamcast called Dreamcast World Cup. And I was like, what? There's a new football game coming to the Dreamcast? Obviously, I'm going through slow time doing retrospectives on all the football games on the Dreamcast. I've done UEFA Dream Soccer and European Super League and also Virtua Striker 2. And I was thinking to myself, if somebody could make a new Dreamcast football game that was, that'd be really cool. Turns out the game that's coming this year apparently is called Dreamcast World Cup. And unfortunately, it turns out that it's little more than a reskin of European Super League, which is not the best game in the world. But again, I'm not going to take anything away from people who are putting their time into a new project. So that'll be coming soon, and we can all have a look at that. I probably won't, because I think European Super League is a terrible football game. But it'll be interesting to see how it turns out. So I just wanted to give that a little bit of a mention. Okay, and I think I'm going back and forth here between sort of things we've already mentioned. Xenocider again. There's actually a demo of that now available on Steam, because the game is coming to PC and current gen consoles this year at some point, 2022. I did download the demo. There's a fully playable demo on there, and it is essentially the same game as the Dreamcast version. It's obviously slightly cleaner. It's higher resolution. All of the cutscenes, they look a little bit better. They're not being played, through a Dreamcast. They're being played on a modern system via Steam. And it's essentially the same game. It is a little bit easier because you can use the mouse and keyboard to play it, so you can just literally, whiz the little targeting reticle around the screen with the mouse. There's no Dreamcasts in it. I know in the Dreamcast original you have to collect Dreamcasts as power-ups, but in the Steam version it's just been replaced with like a little box with an X on it. But I like Xenocrisis, and when it comes to Steam, eventually Fire East Asia Soft, I believe, is publishing it. There's no word yet on what it'll cost, but if it comes in at, £10-15, then definitely give it a go if you've not played the Dreamcast version. Good luck to Retro Summers with that, because we like Retro Summers.
Yep.
I just wanted to mention the brand new Shenmue anime. I watched the first episode, which is the only one that's currently out at the time of recording this. It seems like they're going to be airing every Sunday on Crunchyroll, which is, a very popular subscription service. It seems like there's some kind of association with Adult Swim as well. Maybe they're funding it or producing it, which is cool because I know they've been quite forward at producing a lot of anime as of late. I watched it, and what I'll say is that if you're a Shenmue fan, it's excellent. It seems a lot of people would agree, because there's always the worry with adapting things, especially things based on video games. We've always seen things not go quite right in that regard. But the thing is about Shenmue is that I guess the gameplay of it's just a game where Ryo goes around and talks to people. It's not like Resident Evil where someone's slowly trudging around a mansion looking at pieces of paper. Like he actually interacts with people, and it kind of seems like a more of an obvious concept to put into an anime or a film. It sort of adds a little bit as well. I feel like maybe that kind of years and years of hindsight, it kind of adds a little bit. And actually they've made Ryo not a robot. He actually seems like a person. I love Shenmue, but we all have a joke about how wooden he is. In this, he actually seems genuinely torn up about his father. It shows where he is prior to the incident at the beginning of Shenmue.
Sorry, is it not Corey Marshall?
It's not, no.
Yeah, I'm actually watching the Japanese version with the English subtitles because I'm an otaku like that.
We can't. I don't think we can't get the dubbed version, can we, in the UK?
Not yet, I believe, but
no.
Yeah, it would have been cool to have Corey on it, but yeah. So I've just been watching that Japanese version, but and just little tiny attention to detail, all of the characters have more involvement, and one thing I really liked was how Ryo has a bandage on his face in the game. I had to look up gameplay. He's wearing that before he goes to his house and sees Landy kill his father. But in this, he actually wears the bandage because Landy, when he's fighting him, cuts his face. And so there's a bit where he puts on the bandage. And it's that's really good attention to detail. Because in the game, he's just doing a Nelly and just wearing it, to look cool. So that was really cool.
Does he do that really weird run where he looks like he needs to piss? Like he does in the game?
Possibly. I can't remember. Yeah, and also it seems as if the girl... Shenhua, who appears in Shenmue 2, really far in, she's only seen her briefly at the beginning, but I think she might actually be featured in this anime a lot, in the storyline a lot earlier, as in it'll show her where she lives, until Ryo later meets her, instead of her just being a thing that you see on a crisp packet that he picks up in the game, so but yeah, I thought it was brilliant. I think that it's almost a slightly better telling of the tale than the game, but obviously the game has much more going on for it than an anime. But I say anyone who's a fan, go watch it. It's an absolute love letter to the games.
I think it's really nice that they've put this on this kind of really popular platform like Crunchyroll, and people who have never even heard of Shenmue will see this and go, I wonder what and then show me more kind of thing. Tell me more about Shenmue, and then maybe get into Shenmue. And become fans of it through this anime. So that's cool.
Some people may just want to just experience the story and not have to slog through the games, because I appreciate that they are a bit dense if you're not into that kind of thing. And I've heard a lot of people say how the story of Shenmue's not that good, and it's nah, it's pretty simple, but I think it's interesting.
Yeah, I think the story in Gears of War is quite good, so the story in Shenmue comparatively is like a classic compared to most things that I'm interested in. No, that's really cool. Lewis, let's move on slightly. There's two new Dreamcast translations. You are our translation correspondent, there's two shmups that have been translated into English for the first time. Do you want to tell people what they are?
Indeed, yeah. So the shmups are Radagy or Radalgy. It's got a different
so weird,
pronunciation.
Yeah. Is it either Radurgy or Radilgy? Which one is it?
I think it's mainly referred to as Radagy. But then you have also Chaos Field, and they're both by Milestone, who obviously were very renowned for their games, and especially like these shooters on the Dreamcast. And I would say everyone should look up what happened to Milestone and why they don't exist anymore. It's quite interesting. Anyway, so these two games were translated like in the same week. It was mad. We weren't even a week into 2020 and we'd already got these two translations. So one of them was by someone who basically popped it on the Dreamcast Talk forum just out of nowhere, called Wired Crackpot.
Nice.
They admitted that translation wasn't the best ever, so it's based on the Wii translation. So there was apparently, I didn't realise, but there was apparently an official US Wii release of Radigy, and so they're using that. So it says that it's not the best translation as far as accuracy, but it at least kind of gives you an idea of what's going on. There's a lot that happens in that game, like little messages popping up on the screen and stuff, so that's cool. And it's a bit of a weird plot as well, so it's quite interesting to sort of see what's actually going on there. And then the other one is Chaos Field, done by our pal Derek Pascarella. And I think he, inspired by Radigy, he just kind of had a little poke around in the files of this game. And this is kind of an interesting sort of tidbit about this, is that he found that the Japanese version of the game actually shipped with about 80% of the text and images already translated into English, but they were just hidden away on the disc.
That's so odd.
Yeah, maybe they had an English release in mind, or maybe it's because it was based on a Sega Naomi game, or Naomi, I don't know how you pronounce it.
Don't let Rossi call it Naomi.
Yeah. Perhaps it was like they were going to do an English arcade release, and maybe there was a reason why it was hidden away. But so Derek basically translated the remaining 20% and put it out, and so that's now in English. That game's just been sat there, just 80% translated all this time, and it's Derek found that, so that's brilliant. So hopefully
hidden in plain sight. Almost hidden in plain sight. It's interesting that was Chaos Field. Was it quite a late release for the Dreamcast?
2004, yeah, and then Radigy was 2006.
Right.
So you also have Kaurus as well.
Karas, is that Crow? Yeah.
Yeah, that one's actually already translated. I think that was by Rowley and his team. So that one's already translated. So you've got 3 shmups there that you can play in English, put them on a CDR or an ODE, and you're away basically.
Brilliant. Well, I mean, we have a lot to thank people like Derek Pascarella for his continued work, and others obviously in translating stuff for the English audience or English speaking audience around the world. Moving on to another really interesting kind of homebrew type project that's ongoing at the moment. Guys, I'm sure you've seen the amazing footage of Tomb Raider running on a Game Boy Advance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I saw a video from Modern Vintage Gamer on YouTube a couple of weeks back, and I was just blown away that Tomb Raider via Open Lara is running on a Game Boy Advance. Like, that's just incredible. I know that there was a port on the N-Gage, but the N-Gage was slightly more powerful than the Game Boy Advance, if I remember correctly. So to see it running on the GBA is just amazing.
To be fair, I'm not surprised. There's so many games, if you look with where the GBA like proper has a go at 3D, the little portable that could, for sure.
Totally, yeah. Although I did own a Game Boy Micro for a while, and I did try to get through Doom 2 on that, and I was like, no, I can't do this. It's hurting my eyes, and my fingers, because of how small it is. But I do have a GBA 101, the backlit version. And that's amazing, and I want to get a flash card on it so I can play this Open Lara. But the reason we're talking about Open Lara is that there's also work underway on a Dreamcast port. I know that it's being worked on for the 3DO and apparently for the Jaguar CD, which is something I definitely want to see. Because apparently, I read years ago that apparently Tomb Raider was planned for the Jaguar CD originally, but way back in the day. How well that would have turned out, we could only... Well, I was going to say only hope, but it's probably a good thing that it didn't come out, because it probably would have been all flat shaded polygons, but I digress. Work is underway on a Dreamcast version of Open Lara, and it's mainly through the work of guys on... there was a GitHub release some time ago, and also there's There's a thread on Dreamcast Talk. Yeah, it's being worked on by Megavolt85 and Ian Michael, amongst others. And, you know, obviously the Dreamcast is powerful enough to run Tomb Raider. It's got Tomb Raider The Last Revelation and Tomb Raider Chronicles on it. But it's just, I think it's really cool that they're kind of backwards engineering this engine onto the Dreamcast. And there's some video of it running quite well. It looks like a high-end PC version of Tomb Raider. Nice smooth textures and all that kind of thing. And it looks like they're actually going to be adding some extra features to it that weren't in any of the other versions. So like Rumble Pack support and some of the mods from the different releases of Tomb Raider. So once the game is actually done, once it's finished and is available to download as a CDR or a file for an ODE, then I will be jumping on that because it's just a very, very curious and interesting topic. Don't know what you guys think of Tomb Raider coming to the Dreamcast. Interested? Indifferent?
I like Tomb Raider. I particularly like 2 and 3, and I feel like the Dreamcast was kind of at the tail end of Tomb Raider's best stuff. I don't know, like the 2 on the Dreamcast aren't like the best games, really. I'm not sure. I feel like that was where the series started to get a bit like,
Yeah.
But if the first one was on the Dreamcast now, that would be a different story.
It's really cool how kind of scalable this engine is because I've seen footage of it running on an N64 as well. So yeah, I mean, if it can be run on 3DO and N64, then I can't see why it wouldn't run on the Dreamcast.
How did this all come about?
So Open Lara is a thing that's been in development for years. Just trying to get Tomb Raider engine to run on sort of low-end hardware for years, I believe. And obviously, with this release on the GBA, attention turned to other systems. As I mentioned, the 3DO being one of them. I couldn't really give you a full rundown of the history of the project because, to be honest, I don't know. But it's all very interesting, and it's all out. If you go on Google, type Open Lara Dreamcast, you'll find the thread on Dreamcast Talk. There's a whole GitHub repository as well. I think the GitHub repository is slightly outdated now, and you do need. I read somewhere that you needed a disk of a PS1 version of Tomb Raider to make it run, or something like that.
Cool.
I'm not an expert, but it's all out there, the information. I just wanted to give a bit of a mention to it in case people didn't know the work was ongoing.
Do you think people will be saying, does it run Tomb Raider as opposed to does it run Doom?
Possibly, yeah. I mean, who knows? In the future, we could see ATMs running Tomb Raider instead of Doom, like you say, yeah, or microwaves running Tomb Raider on the little display.
Yeah,
that'd be cool. Right, Tomb Raider hopefully coming to the Dreamcast soon. Then, excellent. We'll just move on to the final story that I wanted to touch on this episode, and that's our old friend Kickstarter. 2 Kickstarters with slightly different fortunes. The first one is Shadow Gangs. This Kickstarter failed initially because the target was too high. I think it was something like £140,000 to bring Shadow Gangs to the Dreamcast. It didn't make anywhere near that, and I think the guys behind the Kickstarter realised that it wasn't going to make its target, so they pulled the plug and then they re-kickstarted it with a much lower target of £25,000. At the time of recording this podcast, the Kickstarter has 18 days to go, and it's got up to £19,473 of its £25,000 goal. I think part of the reason I wanted to bring it up in this podcast is because I just wanted to make people aware of it. Maybe they're not. And I can't see any reason why this should fail to make its target, because I've played the demo and it's actually a really good game. It's got great graphics. It's got a really good soundtrack. Plays really well. It's almost like I think from what I can gather from the blurb on the Kickstarter, it's potentially already finished. They're just looking for money to publish it. And it'll be criminal if it fails to make its target, because it's not really that high, to be honest. 25 grand. I don't know if either of you two have downloaded the demo and had a play of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have. Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, it's good. I mean, it's not necessarily my type of game, but it's runs really well. It looks really good.
Yeah.
I've been following the game for quite a while. It's I think the issue is perhaps the fact that the original campaign maybe was so high. I think it put some people off. I think that's probably one of the reasons. I think that'll be fine. I think they'll have a late surge. I think
Kickstarter tends to have like more expensive prices for the game, and I think I've seen a few people, if they release it later down the line, it'll probably be cheaper, so I'll get that. I was actually, put off getting like a PAL, because I think they were going to do like a PAL look like design of the box, and obviously I'd go for that usually, but it was just a bit too much. I was like, okay, I'm just gonna get the American looking one, like it's not a big deal.
Yeah, no, I see what you're saying, Lewis. I mean, the PAL physical edition is £65, which is a little bit high if you ask me. The American box art version physical is £45. And you only get a physical version if you go to that level. Underneath those tiers, you get a digital edition for £35, which comes with a digital edition of the next gen ones, and also £25 for just the Dreamcast digital edition, which I think is a little bit much, even for the digital. I mean, I've backed it at the £25 tier because that's all I can realistically afford. But I wouldn't. I think 65 is a bit. It's pushing it a bit. That £65. I mean, a PS5 games are like that level. Do you know what I mean?
The Kickstarter says that it's Dreamcast, PS4, and PS5. So I'm trying to figure out if it's a stretch goal.
Yeah, stretch goal. Yeah.
Well, I get the impression they're quite keen on getting it onto those systems, but I just want the Dreamcast. We want the Dreamcast version. Yeah,
and that's been some comments made about the fact that it seems like they're more interested in getting the PS4, PS5 version done through this Kickstarter than actually getting the Dreamcast one, which is already made out. I'm sure it's all miscommunication. I'm sure it's all just basically not actually anything wrong at all. I just think the original Kickstarter was such a high level, and I think there was an unrealistic approach to it. I think it's put some people off. So hopefully it'll get funded and we'll see it within the next couple of years. That's
Shadow Gangs. Shadow Gangs, obviously, we'd love it to end up on a Dreamcast near you somewhere in the near future. The other Kickstarter that has been a little bit more successful, well, I say a little bit, a lot more successful, is the Kickstarter has actually been helmed by our very own Andrew Dickinson. That is Volume 3 of Lock On, a gaming journal. Full disclosure, myself and Lewis and our other podcast host Rich, we've all contributed to this journal. But the Lock On Kickstarter went live on Monday the 7th of February 2022, and less than 6 hours later it actually surpassed its goal of 24,000. Currently, at the time of recording this, it's at £39,687. So massive congratulations to Andrew and all the other guys involved at Lost in Cult who are running this project. Other than contributing to it, me and Lewis have nothing really to do with this Kickstarter, so we're not kind of like shilling our own work, as it were. But it looks really cool. I mean, there's so many people involved with it who are got a bit of a following within the Dreamcast community. You've got people like Adam Korolick, John Linneman. You've got guys who worked on the official Sega Dreamcast magazine over in the States. They've got some really cool interviewees who worked on Dreamcast games. So yeah, it's a success story really, and what else can I say other than well done to the team. I'm looking forward to getting my physical physical version of it. I guess you guys backed it, yeah?
Yeah.
Cool. Hardcover. Had to hardcover for the Shenmue cover.
Yeah, so that's the thing. So the hardcover version is the one that has the Shenmue artwork, which is amazing, and the softcover version is the one that comes with the Sable artwork. Yep. But I really like Sable, so I went for the softcover one because and it's a lot cheaper. So being a bit of a skinflint as I am, I went for that more affordable version. But yeah, that will be out at some point in the next few months, I would imagine. So. Yeah.
Just before we move on, we have got one other Kickstarter project as well, which I want to mention, which is a game which is Moorthorn. It's a Metroidvania game. It's another game made in NES Maker, another game which is sort of a NES style game, but it has got a bit of a bigger scope. It looks really interesting, lots of Metroidvania elements, and it had a ridiculously low goal. I think the goal was less than £4,000. It's already nearly tripled that as it is, and it's definitely coming out. And there's a Dreamcast version. That's the reason I'm talking about it. I'm not talking about NES games for no reason. There's a Dreamcast version coming, and yeah, it looks really cool. Looks like it's running for another 27 days, so go and back it. Moorthorn.
Interesting. So even more stuff coming to the Dreamcast. Excellent. Wow, this is Yeah, you're going to be busy, Mike, with your reviews this year, I think.
Yeah, cheers.
Right, unless there's anything else, guys, I think that's probably about it. I'll just mention briefly at the end, we do have there's a way to support the podcast and the blog and everything else we do. You can go to Buy Me a Coffee / the DC Junkyard, or just search Dreamcast Junkyard, Buy Me a Coffee. You'll find us. If you want to throw some cash our way, you can. Conversely, if you don't want to, that's also fine. And I just want to briefly mention an article I wrote today, which is about the Sega Spud Dive. I've written about it before. People are probably sick of hearing me talk about it. I also mentioned it to Peter Moore on our episode 100 interview with him. But I've been on another quest trying to find some video footage of the event, because even though there are multiple angles and photographs that were published in magazines and on the internet, I've never seen any video of this event taking place, and I'm thinking it might be lost media. It might qualify as lost media, but I'm back on my bullshit essentially when it comes to the Spud Dive. So just humour me, and if you've got any footage, then please reach out via the comment or via social media. Speaking of social media, you can find us all as a collective on Twitter at the DC Junkyard. Lewis, where can you be found on Twitter.com?
At LewisJFC is my Twitter handle. Go follow me.
Excellent. And Mike, where can you be found on Twitter.com?
So I can be found at space_turnip. Also can be found at Dreamcast Picks, where I am trying to put all my news about the A to Z guide on as much as possible, and just pictures of my collection, because I'm a boring old fart.
Brilliant. I resisted the urge to read out the entire URL, starting with the HTTPS bit. I thought that might be quite tedious. But you can also find us online at the Dreamcast Junkyard main blog, which is https. No, it's just www.thedreamcastjunkyard.co.uk. And find all of our interesting, well, I think they're interesting blog posts there.
Open up your browser of choice and click in the top bar, HTTP, go all the way back to the beginning, turn on your computer.
Yeah. Click on the Windows 95 icon.
Yeah.
Start menu. That will do it for this episode. Thank you, Lewis, for joining me. Thank you, Mike, for joining me and us. And thank you to you, our listener, for choosing to download this particular episode. If you've got any feedback, get in touch via social media or the blog. Let us know what you think. Give us a review on iTunes or whatever podcatcher you use. And we'll see you on the next issue, or edition even, of the DreamPod. Goodbye for now.
Please stop this disc now.